This lecture focuses on theories of technology and society. One way of looking at how people look at technology is, do they view it as positive, or what we call utopians, that technological change is always progressive, versus people, the dystopians, who focus on the negative effects of social change, or how social change is regressive. Within social theory in general, there's a larger debate as to whether or not social change is evolutionary in general, or whether we're simply adapting to existing conditions. In the second case, we also have people who are determinists. They're either technological determinists, that the material conditions of technology are what drive change or drive social change, and the social determinists who argue that the social milieu, that is actually what's driving how we invest in technology and technological change. And again, this is a reflection of a larger debate in the social sciences as to whether or not change is precipitated by material conditions, or whether change is primarily advanced through our existing social thoughts. And you'll notice I've also posted several videos on Weber. He takes this interesting middle ground where you need to have certain social preconditions for social change to occur, but you also need the material conditions. Utopian versus dystopian views of progress. Utopians tend to believe that technology is the means of achieving our goals, our dreams. It's a way of becoming more efficient. Generally, utopians believe that we're going to accomplish our scientific goals, our societal goals, our larger goals through this embracement of technology and science. But they don't ask the question of for whom, right? Whose goals are these? Who's going to benefit? Who's going to suffer? Dystopian perspectives tend to view technology as a regressive force, as doing negative things to us. But others point out that many of these negative impacts could be unintended effects of technology, that they're part of larger social problems, not the technology itself. Another way of categorizing approaches to studying technology is summarized by Feenberg in 1999. Feenberg developed a theoretical model in which we distinguish between two critical aspects of technology, whether one is neutral or value-laden, or whether one subscribes to an autonomous versus human-controlled model. On the neutral end of the spectrum, you have people who believe that technology has absolutely no impact on the fundamental elements of human nature, such as our happiness, our morality, or our empathy. On the other side of the argument are those who argue that technology is value-laden. This side tends to assume that technology is conflated with human development. In this view, technology is always progress. Obviously, both of these sides of the spectrum are leaving no room for real social and cultural analysis, and that's why we don't use these as often today. Autonomous theories contend that human beings have very little to do with how technologies evolve and diffuse in society. In this view, the underlying assumption is that technology propels and alters the development of social structure and cultural values, not the other way around. There's very little role for human agency. On the other side of this is the view that technology is a socially constructed entity, that there's a human-controlled element to the diffusion and adaptation of technology. The human-controlled position eventually develops into our more modern views of technology and society. Feenberg eventually identified four main theories along the technology-society intersection. First is determinism. Determinism falls into two categories: technological determinism and social determinism. Technological determinism focuses on the technology itself, right? The limits of what we can do with that technology, with what we can develop. Social determinism looks at factors in society that create specific uses of technology, and also our norms, our attitudes, our practices, and our beliefs. Next is instrumentalism. For instrumentalists, or instrumentalism, technology is the result of an evolutionary process. And within that process, the goals of rationality and efficiency are paramount. So it gives us a different way of looking at how technology evolves within society to meet specific goals or needs. Substantivism highlights that technology brings forth new social, political, and cultural systems, which it then structures and controls. In this view, there's always a relationship between technology and social change, but technology is playing this very specific role in controlling it. Finally, we have critical theory. Critical theory situates technology in both the technological and the social realm. It looks at how technology doesn't just satisfy our goals, it isn't just developed along these specific rules, but it is very much embedded within a system of power and privilege. What are referred to as hegemonic elites have far more control in determining what technologies are developed and adapted. Science and technology studies, or STS, are far more common today. Science and technology studies bring a new set of characteristics or approaches to studying technology. First, we have rejections of both social and technological determinism. We also see STS employing a more holistic approach, bringing together different aspects of our world, our social, our political, our cultural, our economic world. All are important parts of understanding technology and society today. And finally, STS is more likely to also bring in qualitative methods to help make sense of any other data they have. Qualitative methods are things more like case studies or ethnographic interviews. STS studies continue to struggle to bring together both micro and macro levels of analysis. A related social science approach to studying technology is what's called SCOTE, or the social construction of technology. SCOTE uses 4 key terms to help understand the way that design, technology, and society interact with each other. The first is what's called the relevant social group. Who's using the technology? How are they using it? What meanings are they making out of the technology? Next is we have interpretive flexibility. Meanings that are given to artifacts and how they're used even are not necessarily fixed. Technologies can be used in a range of ways. Over time, however, we tend to see closure and stabilization. Across time, the uses of technologies and objects eventually stabilize, and we see less play with their meaning. And then finally, we take a look at the wider context, or, quote, the socio-cultural and political situation of a social group shapes its norms and values, which in turn influences the meaning given to an artifact. Another common group of theories is what's referred to as ANT, or actor network theory. Actor network theory is put forth by scholars like Latour, Calhoun, and Law, and they treat everything as interacted or connected through a network. Actor network theory focuses on these actors and the way networks intertwine them. A modern example would be some examples from theories of spatiality, such as spaces of prescription, which are where networks are clearly defined and recognizable, and spaces of negotiation, places where networks are still being negotiated. Actor network theory has been critiqued for not really distinguishing between actors and networks in any sort of meaningful way. The theory is overall rather vague, and it doesn't really consider the way larger structures are impacting things. Finally, we have what's known as technical affordances. Technical affordances considers the different ways that technology, such as computers, apps, and interfaces, create a range of action possibilities. Some were far more likely to take than others. It fundamentally has its roots in psychology. Technical affordances theory is generally critiqued as being a little bit vague, somewhat myopic, and failing to distinguish between what the researcher perceives as affordances and what the user perceives as affordances. For the purposes of this class, we're going to be mostly taking an STS approach, though you're free to engage with other theories as you work on your research paper.